Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the SiteShed podcast. Thank you once again for sharing your earbuds with me wherever you are on this planet. Today, we have a very unique and interesting first-time attempt at a three-way conversation, which I've put together so that I can answer a question that's come through from a client of ours down in Melbourne. I've got today Ellen Rohr from ellenrohr.com, also known as the Plumber's Wife, and Al Levi from Appleseed Business, both of which you would be familiar with if you're a listener to this show. They've both appeared on the show numerous times, and they've both had some fantastic series that we put together. This was a question that's come from Anthony Hunter down in Plan B Plumbing in Melbourne, Australia. And the question is relative to him wanting to expand his business and effectively set himself up in a way that he can build the business so that it can be acquired, therefore remove him from operations. So the question was, when is the right time to expand? Is it when the work is there, or is it during the planning phase? Now, I've asked Al and Ellen to come on the show today because they both have extensive knowledge in these areas. They both work very closely together in the United States. They're actually currently building one of the country's largest franchise businesses in the drain cleaning area. So they're a wealth of knowledge. If you've heard their stuff before on the show, you would already know this. This would not be news to you. Anyway, I'm going to put links to all the previous shows in the show notes, so head across there. And also there's going to be links to a page that Ellen's put together off the back of her website that has a couple of documents which can help you with your business growth. One of them is a business planner. The other one's a financial planner. They're both fantastic tools. Go and get them. It won't cost you anything. And then there's also going to be a link to the first chapter of Al Levi's book, which is the 7-Power Contractor. That book is basically designed to help tradies and contractors systemize their business. It's an amazing book. So definitely go and get hold of that. You can get the first chapter, and then if you want to read the rest, go buy it. Anyway, that's all from me. Let's dive right in. I will ask, if you're enjoying this podcast, if you do enjoy this podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone. There's plenty of people out there that would get a lot of value out of this. And likewise, if you could leave us a review in iTunes, that would be fantastic. The reviews you basically leave us enable us to keep doing these podcasts and keep this content coming. So it helps our rankings and it helps us grow on the interweb. So anyway, that's enough from me. Let's dive right in. Enjoy the show and go get them.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the SiteShed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Toolbox Talks. You're joined with us today in a first-time attempt at a three-way discussion. I'm joined on the phone. I'm joined on the phone by the Plumber's Wife, Ellen Rohr from ellenrohr.com, and Al Levi from Appleseed Business. The guys are joining us from the United States. Welcome back to the show, folks.
Hey, great to be back.
Hi.
Hey, thanks.
So we're pioneering here. This is a first time. This is a first time attempt at this. Hopefully, it all goes to plan. Although I do know we all like to talk, so this could go either way.
Yeah, I know. We could talk all over each other.
And one other thing, don't say three-way anymore, other than broadcast. So let's move on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Because Al and I are really, though you were born like in 1995, we're old and still like sixth graders at heart. So I don't know that we can be trusted with any kind of innuendo. Just saying.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And if I was born in 1995, that means I finished all my schooling in 3 years, which is pretty impressive. Anyway.
Yes. Excellent.
Anyway, folks, I've invited you back on the show today. We've had a question come through from colleague/client of ours, Anthony Hunter, down in Melbourne, Australia. He's from Plan B Plumbing Solutions, and I just, as soon as I read this question that he sent through to me, I thought of you guys straight away because I know you've both been there and I know you've both done it. So before we dive into the question, just a little bit, I suppose, a background on you two. You guys are both located in the United States. You both have your own business, and you both, Al, your Appleseed Business, obviously you help businesses with their processes and basically setting a solid foundation from a business point of view. ellenrohr.com, like you guys, I mean, you're originally known as, or you've sort of tagged, I suppose, the Plumber's Wife. Do you want to tell us a little bit about ellenrohr.com?
Sure. And I can also shed some light on my relationship with Al, who is my best friend and business partner.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, like a lot of other husband and wife teams. I quit my real job. I went to work with my husband and it was totally awful. And luckily I found some great mentors, Al being one of them. And I figured out my asset from my elbow. I learned how to put a little business plan together. And since then, it's like I was born again in terms of helping other mom pop shops and contractors of all shapes and sizes start, fix, and grow businesses of their own.
Yeah.
My specialty is financial cleanup and simple business planning. Al Levy is the best operations guy I know and knows so much about sales, marketing, acquisition, and all kinds of other things. So we became friends because we met in the industry. We met at Contractors 2000, now known as Nexstar, once upon a time. And we've been friends ever since. And as consultants, we help each other out. Al's very savvy when it comes to the financials, but he's not really fond of that area of the business when it comes to cleanup. So I kind of raised my hand there. And this is how we've ended up working together and then settled on expanding a franchise together. So Al, that's a little bit of background on you. Why don't you share more?
Well, for our listeners, that was the longest that you've ever heard me be quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's for the experienced listeners. For the new ones,
That was weird.
The accent should give it away. Yes, I know. You probably thought my microphone was broken.
No, I had you on mute.
I had you. A good idea, Matt. Yeah, Ellen really put it together really well. My aspect of it, a little background, which we shared the last time, which is I grew up in family business. I was third generation, and pleased to say that my plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical company now is in the hands of the fourth generation, and they're doing great. And a place called Long Island in New York City. And the systems and stuff that I put together, building techs and doing that, is really what set me free. And I got so good at it, I put myself out of a job happily. And this is what I've been doing for the last 15 years. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. So for the listeners that are... Well, obviously, Al, you've been back on the show a number of times. Ellen, we did a fantastic series as well. I'll post some links to that in the show notes, both the links to all of those episodes that we did. I suppose the question today that came from Anthony was, when is the right time to expand? When the work is there, or is it during the planning phase? Now, I know you guys deal a lot with expansion. I suppose on that note, I might just get you guys both to give us a bit of a rundown now into the franchise that you're both working in and developing in the United States called Zoom Drain. Now, obviously, Anthony's not looking at developing a franchise, but I know that a franchise model is a fantastic way to systemize your business. So there's a lot of things you can take from that, even as a sole trader or a small business owner. Can you give us a bit of a rundown on Zoom Drain, where that came from, where it's going, what you guys are doing with it, your involvement, the team, et cetera?
Well, before we do that, I want to say I love the name of your company, Anthony, Plan B, which makes me think that Plan A was calling someone else. And now let's call it the real deal guy to make it all better. If that was your intention, that totally landed with me. Al, why don't you start this question and we can go back and forth a little bit.
Great. Thanks, Al. The way that it started was actually going to fit to this, which is I was called back in 2005 when Jim Carnegie and Jason Carnegie in Philly were in the drain business, and they made a mistake of going into the plumbing business for an hour, and they realized they had to reel back to their plumbing, but they were stuck. As classically you get stuck at companies where you don't have systems and you can't grow. But they knew there was great potential out there and they could grow if they had that. So that's where I came in. They were the typical drain company, for those, and take this the right way because I've done drain work. I walked in thinking I knew everything, Matt, about drains. How hard could this be? Mm-hmm. And man, did I get smacked with a baseball bat because I didn't have any idea the level of sophistication and things that were involved, the way that they did drain and the type of work that they did. Totally different than a plunger and a snake. Very, very different. But more than that, though, what they did need from me was systems, manuals, and training and building staff. And these guys, to their credit, young at that time, they bought into it full blast. And then they have grown their company ever since. It's always about the things we left off the last time, Matt, which is you really got, even though you got a million things, guys, out there, you got two things: more calls and more texts. That's really the essence of it. So I'll take it from there.
I think that just where you left off is such a nice place to pick up. We have one of our franchisees is just now tracking $6 million in sales. One of them is a brand new startup, has never done drains before. He has a $20 million HVA or air conditioning company, and this is a new venture for him, but it's an exciting moment. The other franchisees are at 1 million and about $500,000 just as they're getting started. But here's the interesting thing. All of our conversations with these franchisees are about more calls and more texts. So the first guy who's getting started, we're looking for one call, one tech as we launch. And at Zoom in Philly, where we're tracking 6 million, it's getting very predictable in terms of the recruiting, hiring, orienting, training, and retaining process. So when it comes to making that decision as to whether or not you grow, what Al's taught me is that wherever you are is the appropriate time to put systems and procedures into place. Yep. So that even if you don't grow, at least you'll have a little more time. Right before we got on the phone, I'm talking to a fellow who said, I can't come to office hours because they're right in the middle of my workday. And I said, well, office hours are at 5:00 Central Time. And that's where he is. And he says, oh, I never get off before 7. That's not what other people experience. In our industry, that seems to become like this new normal, but there is a point where you could say, I can't get it all done. I'm going to start getting things done through others, even if it's one other person. So to work on the functionality of the company you have is always a good idea.
Yeah.
Al?
Yeah, Al, it's really right on target. For me, the question here is to speak to Anthony directly and to others that are listening. It's always the right time to grow, but the trick is to grow smart. So actually what sounds the weirdest, Ellen and we did a program about how to do acquisition, which we'll get into in a minute. But the best time to grow your company is when the economy is bad, which sounds totally backwards. I know it when I say it to people. But Matt, would you buy a building if you had money in your pocket when it's already fully rented at the top of the rent market, or when you buy it when it's cheap? It's like buying a stock if you think about it.
Right.
And the reason it's so great is because other people are fearful. But the greatest growth, and I watched my dad and my uncle do it, and if not for them doing this, there wouldn't have been any business for us to come by. So the answer is it's always a great time to grow. But the trick to it is grow with systems so that you can grow as big as you want.
So just for Anthony listening out there and anyone else who's interested, we've actually covered, probably not as direct or as precise to this question, but there are a bunch of episodes that we have covered off in the past. I'd encourage you to go listen to the entire Big Business series with Ben Stainer, which is episode 29 through to 32. Ben grew an empire in Sydney and sold it, and he did all that through systems and processes, so that'd be totally relevant. Episode 33 with Jeremy Dyer, he talks about franchising, which we're going to get into a little bit more obviously in this episode, but that also will be good when you get an idea of how to bring on staff and grow and scale. Episode 58 with you, Al, we were talking about staffing power. That's obviously completely relevant. And then there's that entire series we did, Al, with why most family businesses don't work. And I know we were talking about family businesses, but the 3 episodes that we covered off in that series were the organizational chart, defining roles, and steering the ship, so leadership. And I think they're all completely relevant to the question that Anthony's asking. And then there's episode 97 and 98 with Greg Hamlin. We're talking about how to find the right staff members, and we're also talking about how to retain your staff. So I think there's a lot of back-ended questions that come out of the question that Anthony's asking here, and I'm looking forward to diving in. I suppose maybe what would be the starting point? So when we're looking at when the right time is to expand, when the work's there, during the planning phase, we haven't really, I suppose, brought up the market as such. And I suppose we sort of immediately jump into that whole mindset of acquisition. But what if he's not looking to acquire necessarily? Maybe he's just looking to, put an extra truck on the road.
Well, there's two ways to grow. And obviously there's a million ways to grow, but the 2 ways I've for years and years, I always was fascinated by guys who left their job as a tech, went down the road, got in business, and how did they do it to grow to, big enough to bring me in? And there's really 2 ways it broke down to. Is either they acquired the company that they were at because the owner had no relative family, couldn't sell it, and they took it from there and they just grew it. And what we call organic growth is that they're great marketers.
Yeah.
They make the phone ring off the hook. And that is really what you want. I don't care what size company you are. I know it sounds crazy, but you have to have more calls coming in than you can humanly do in a day. Because then you get to pick and choose who you're going to go to and what prices you're going to charge and the level of service you're going to deliver. Now, putting management to that, managing that in a way to, one of the early customers, Ellen knows, the person I work with was a great company. And he said to me one day, he said, Al, at the end of the day, at 2:00 in the afternoon, the awful truth comes home. And I said, what awful truth is that? He said, which customers are going to love me? Which customers are going to like me? And which ones are not? And what am I going to do about it? And I thought that was so brilliant. Ellen's heard me say it a few thousand times.
Yeah.
But that's really learning how to manage. So don't be afraid of growth is what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Do not be afraid of growth. I had to get over it myself.
I suppose I should give you a bit of background here as well, just before we go on. I actually did a bit of digging and a bit of probing after I got that question. And Anthony told me that he's actually inevitably looking for an exit strategy. So he's sort of he's getting in that mindset now of working towards implementing systems and processes that can effectively remove him from some of the operations. So he's got something that's something that could be acquired that isn't going to end up buying him a job.
How big is he now? Like just number of trucks or?
I think he's got about 6 guys, so he's not huge, but he's Did you speak to him, Al? I'm not sure if you.
No. That's the size company. No, he never did follow up with this. The size of the company that Jim and Jason were when I went to them way back when.
Right.
They just didn't have enough hours in the day, couldn't work anymore, didn't want to kill themselves, and they recognized, to their credit, early rather than later, that they had to make the business repeatable and function with others, not just them doing all the stuff.
Okay, so we've talked about. Sorry, Ellen.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I feel compelled to encourage Anthony this way too. Make sure that you make this decision on your own. Al and I think we're so smart, and we are. And Matt has all this information for you. No one is going to be able to make this decision for you but you. And there is this they out there. I was talking to a guy the other day and he said, well, they say that you're not going to make any money the first 3 to 5 years you're in business. And I'm like, who are they? Don't listen to them, whoever they are. There isn't anybody out there who's got it all figured out that you're going to tap into, who's going to, guide you through this process. So like they say in AA, take what you need and leave the rest. Pull all of this through your filter. What sometimes needs to happen is if you're drowning, and that may be one of the reasons why you're looking for an exit strategy. You're overwhelmed. There's too much to do. You've had it. You're frustrated. You're working way too hard. Some people burn out, and that's what causes them to say, I've had it. Or maybe you're getting older, and that's a good reason. But sometimes when you fix the systems, the financial systems, the operating systems, the marketing systems, as you start to put systems in place, what you'll find is you have a little more time. This is what happened to me. And as you get more time, then you can ask and answer higher level questions like, why am I doing this? What do I want to do in 5 years? Where do I want to be? Who do I want to become? What really, makes my heart pound? What are the things that I have yet to accomplish in this life? And as you ask and answer those questions, that will be the ultimate information that you need to either grow your business, because it's going to, as Michael Gerber and so many people say, move you in the direction of your life goals. Your business is supposed to support your life goals. And if it's not, you have to fix it or divest it or, do something, because otherwise your life becomes your business. And that's one of the reasons why people call me and ask.
Yep. As a matter of fact, that reminded me, El, there's a company that, we work together, and he called me up, Matt, he was turning 50. And I said to him, so if we work together 3 to 5 years from now, what would be going on for you? He goes, I'd be retired. And I said, well, that's a good goal if that's what you want. But if you're telling me, like a lot of people, it's because the business is killing you, which is why my tagline has always been less stress, more success. I said, how about if we put some systems in? And let's find out if we can get your business to run right. And then if you want to leave, we'll be in a better shape. And you may find out you fall in love with your business. Well, the answer is 10 years down the road, Matt, you're still there, and next family's coming, and he's loving it. So that's my advice. Now, that doesn't mean it's for everybody, because Ellen's right. Nobody gets to plan for you unless you let them plan for you. And planning is where I always start. So the goal, of course, is to work on the right thing at the right time, the right way. Yeah, and that's what Anthony was kind of talking about. Now, putting a plan is, well, how big do you want to grow? What areas do you want to serve? Yeah. What type of customers? What do you want to charge? Do we have to acquire a company? How much money are you going to spend for marketing? Which is Ellen's great stuff about do it on paper or, of course, in Excel, which is what, doing budgeting.
Yeah.
Which Ellen has taught me from day one. Can I share a quick story?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, look at me. It's Matt's show. But
it's Matt's show.
Take it away, Ellen.
Thank you for thank you. Well, Ellen and I years ago did a Alan L show together, and I was consulting on my own, and she was and we hadn't even working together. And I'm sitting there with my business person who was working with me, Kim, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking and I'm listening and I'm thinking about what she's talking about, and I realized without the financial piece, without learning how to budget and do these other things and charging the right price, I could come to your shop, teach you about how to plan operations, staffing, sales, and you're going to get hurt. And the answer to that is I could do a successful operation. The patient dies. And so that is why I reached out to Ellen. I realized we never wanted to work for each other. But the reality is that my smart customers put themselves in great shape because Ellen taught them the business financial basics, which is where you have to start. So when I say planning, it includes financial production. So take that away, Al, about how you do that.
Yeah, that's a thanks for that. But that was really what happened to me. There are other ways to get there. So Anthony, this isn't the only way. There's no wrong in any of these decisions. It's just information. My path was that the first thing my mentor did, Frank Blau, the one I wrote him a letter, he wrote in a magazine. I mean, now we listen to podcasts. Anthony, definitely reach out and talk to Al. That's going to be a good use of your time. But this is how you get the information you need. So I connected with Frank Blau, and he was very blunt about my ignorance about the financials. He's like, well, how do you even know if it's working? How do you know how deep this hole of debt is if you're not keeping score? So Al said he starts with planning. I start with the money. It doesn't really matter. It's like, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. The follow-up question could be, well, which bite first? It really doesn't matter. Just get going. If you're going to subscribe to Al's philosophy and you start with planning, you're totally going to get there. In my life, I started with the money because I had to prove to myself that what I was doing was absolutely not working. And once I got my arms around the money, we raised our prices, we bought ourselves a little breathing room, and then that's when we dug into planning. So however you get there, as long as you get there, that's going to help you with this overall decision as to whether or not to grow or not. There isn't one path that anybody could take. Like, here, just do this, do A, then B, then C, and you're going to be at 6 trucks and then 10 trucks. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You put a plan together, you try stuff, you measure the results on the financials, you measure how much time you're spending, whether or not your customers love you. You test the outcome against your goals, and you're making all this up. You're just choosing. And then you adjust your game plan. So I refer to that as dream, act, test. Dream, act, test. In the military, they say plan, execute, debrief. Plan, execute, debrief. All aligned with what you choose as your goal and your mission and your vision. That's up to you, Anthony.
So, Anthony, it'll pay definitely to go back and listen to the series we did with Ellen called Business Uncomplicated. In episode 47, she was talking about getting a grip on your financials. Episode 48, we were talking about business planning made easy, which is what you're just talking about now. And then episode 49, you're talking about decision day, which was really an interesting segue and I suppose a paradigm to the way a lot of business owners typically think. In that episode, I recall, Ellen, you were talking about how sometimes when we're in business, we get attached to it. It's like our children, and it's kind of deadly at the end of the day. Sometimes you've got to make a decision: is this a valid business? Do I want to be in here? And if it's not, cut it and move on to the next thing. I think that was a very interesting paradigm when I heard that, because I know very much people get just so attached to these things they've built and they've grown, and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, it's a business. It's there to make money.
Well, and you don't want to quit on a bad day. Right. So that's the idea of decision day, is put it out there. Don't do it today, because you'll wonder. You throw it up in the air, you blow it all up, and you go, was it as bad as I thought it was?
Right.
If you put that decision day out long enough, and then you follow Al's good counsel, you put a plan in place, you listen to my suggestion of keeping score, and then you work that plan, no holds barred, between now and decision day. And then you're going to be in a better position to say, you know what, this is not working for me. Or, hey, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. This is getting easier. I think I'm going to continue on.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying as well about, and Anthony, perhaps you can relate to this, or any of the listeners out there, set your goals, set a plan, like create a strategy, and it will very rarely will it ever end up the way you set it from the beginning. Like it will always sort of morph and take change and take different forms and get steered off in different directions. But the reality, I suppose, of what you guys have taught me and what you guys teach a lot of the time is if you don't have anything in place or you don't have some sort of direction in which way you're heading, then it's very hard to steer it.
No question. Yeah, the way I say it is any road will do if you don't care where you're going. And you ought to care where you're going. So that's part of it. I do think, as far as the planning aspect with it, why don't people plan? Why don't they make a plan? And here's the answer. Because we don't want to fail. It's the same reason we don't write our goals down. But if you don't write your goals down, if you don't put a date to when it would happen, then it's not likely to happen. I know it from my own, having done it. Ellen and I have done it with so many clients individually and together. When they commit to putting it in, obviously today it's online in Word, Excel, whatever you feel like working in, but you actually put your top 5 projects down and what's going to make the biggest difference for you, and put a date there that when it's going to come. Otherwise, it's just a nice goal or a wish, if you will.
Yeah.
Here's how I make it safe for people. I said, here's what I promise you, Matt. There are no goal police that are going to come and take you away if you don't hit the goal. So I'm automatically making it safe. Go do it. Everyone who's out there listening, go put your goals down in writing and then look at them. Ellen taught me a great habit about that, the weekly meeting.
Yep. So we just actually recorded a fantastic series at the beginning of this year with a guy called Tom Reber, who's out of, have you heard of Tom from Motorhard? He's out of Colorado. And the whole series was on goal.
This is a small world.
Yeah,
because,
right.
Because literally a day or two ago, I don't know if I get a chance to tell you, but I'm going to be on a podcast
with Tom.
Yeah, I think Tom. If you had said it 2 days ago, I wouldn't know what you're talking about. But yeah, so that's funny. I'll be there in April.
Yeah, that's great. We just
fun!
Yeah, we just did a whole series on goal setting, and it was amazing. Like he's got some really good systems and frameworks around setting goals, and more importantly, keeping accountable to goals. Like it's so often, people will set a goal and then it sort of gets lost in the ether, and business all gets caught up in all this sort of stuff, and you just forget about what you're doing and you just lose track. So it was a really interesting series. Anyone who's interested in checking that out, go back. It's episode 106, 107, 108. You can search that through thesiteshed.com. So just reeling it back in a little bit here. So in relation to this question, obviously don't be afraid of growth. Now, if we're not afraid of growth, how do we define when's the right time to make that smart decision about growing? So, okay, we've accepted we're not afraid of it. We need to grow. How do we do this the right way?
Well, let me ask one other question. The size of your market area makes a difference. Yes. So, like for instance, one of the things that we're doing at Zoom is we've determined that our concept is a big city concept because it's a niche business. We just do drain and sewer. We don't do plumbing. We don't do heating. We don't do anything else. So that kind of a niche really couldn't get very big in a town of 5,000 people.
Right.
So now, Sydney, Melbourne, that would be 2 good examples.
Those would be great cities to be a pure play company, meaning we're just going to do one type of business.
Yeah.
But if you were, another question that Anthony might ask is, do I take the same customers that I have and add a vertical, or do I want to keep my offerings niche and then go to new markets? So that's another exploration.
Yeah,
excellent point, El. Yes, because in places where people are trapped, because the way I usually define this is, so wherever your shop is, draw a circle around it. 30-minute out, 60-minute out, traffic-wise, because from New York, 30 minutes could be a mile and a half.
Yeah.
So it's 30 minutes or 60-minute drive time. So what's the population base within that? And that begins to tell you what your market cap could be.
Yeah.
Now, if you do what Ellen just said, and that's why we got into so many services. Now, we were in a big population area, but we wanted to be able to own the basement. In other words, when we were just in the heating business, anybody who was a plumber or air conditioning or electrical guy could come in and take all our customers, and we weren't going to put up with that. So, but if you're going to be in it, you have to be in it really good, and brings us back to, again, systems.
Yeah.
And once you learn how to train and the rest of it, you can do so many more things. But growing, the answer to that question, as best I can say it, is if your phone's ringing off the hook, time to grow. Start hanging, get some people going and doing the rest of the stuff. And if you need to move, I've I've had the unfortunate conversation with people who called me up and said, no matter how smart you are, unless you're going to sell to cows and sheep, you're pretty stuck because I know where you are. And there's not enough population base around it. You follow what I mean?
So realistically, when we're talking about when's the right time to grow, the number one thing that has to be occurring is, you have to have the leads coming and your phone's got to be ringing. Otherwise, what's the point? You put new people on, you're just paying them wages and it's not going anywhere.
It's this really, here's some encouragement. Even if you had 100 trucks on any given day, you're probably going to have more calls than texts or more texts than calls.
Yes.
There is no perfect number where this goes away. I mean, Al, have you ever seen this?
No. I got that lecture, matter of fact, from, I was thinking there was a magic
Diamond?
number. Oh, yeah,
Right.
Mike Diamond gave it to me.
Me
I know
too.
it was
Yeah.
Providence. And I said, and it was actually the most liberating thing because up to that point, I had, I'm 25 trucks. If I get to 50, it's all fixed. The answer is no. Not true.
What was the phrase again?
He turned to
That's
me.
always going to come. That's always going to come. Here's a question too. When it comes to our kind of
I asked for the phrase.
Oh, sorry. What?
Yeah, the phrase, which is you either have 100 trucks I asked him, what's it feel like to have 100 trucks? And he goes, I know what you're asking, Al. You think there's a magic number. He goes, here's what I can tell you. On any given day, I have 50 trucks too many or 50 not enough. That's why I'm a manager.
So there isn't like, oh, yay, we have enough trucks. Now we just have to grow the techs. There is no promise that in fact, in your whole year, you might find a couple sweet spot days where you kind of nail it, where you get all the calls done without somebody, like Al said, you need to make it up to them. And you know how it is. You have too many techs for a day. After 1 or 2 days, that tech is thinking, maybe I should get another job, someone who can keep me busier. That doesn't go away. That's where your leadership and your character are definitely going to be tested, and you're going to learn and grow. Yep. When it comes to a city, if the population is there, if we're talking about things like drain cleaning and plumbing, these are probably the most economically resistant industries you're ever going to have. I mean, how bad does it have to be if your toilet's stopped up and you're not going to call a plumber? Yeah. So the question becomes, why aren't they calling me? The calls are definitely there every day if the population is there. Why aren't they calling me? It's always going to be some kind of a marketing or messaging challenge. And then growing techs, what Al taught me, it's because he was born in 34 BC or something. Didn't you determine that from your Skype name?
Year 3485. That's right.
But this is something that comes with age. But Matt, you're still a kid. The older you get, the faster it goes. The faster times goes. But if you look at like, oh man, it's going to take me 5 years to get someone who starts from scratch at my company to be licensed, to be able to go in a truck on his own. When you're our age, you realize that it takes about 15 minutes for 5 years to pass. And the expression I like is that if you started now to build these systems, as Al has taught me, to put a training center in place to help them get licensed, you start moving guys through this engine of recruiting, hiring, orienting, training, and retaining. 5 years from now, you'll have this engine. You'll have these homegrown guys who know only your way to do things. Or in 5 years, you'll still be bemoaning the fact that I can't find trained, skilled technicians. Nobody's going to do this for you. Yeah. So Anthony, if you're willing to do that, then really the sky is the limit. I think, learning the marketing skills that you need to get more calls and being willing to commit to growing your own team, that's when you really take charge of growth, and you can move forward in a I don't want to say consistent way. It's never consistent, but maybe a little bit more predictable.
So why don't we move on a little bit into that? Because I know, Al, when we did that episode on staffing power, you mentioned that although you had a large business and there were a lot of competition out there that were trying to poach your guys, you never really had a problem with them leaving because you always had a really good system and a really good business model in place that not only offered them a job, but it gave them a career path and it led them to the next step. And I thought that was really powerful, and it's something that I know for certain most businesses out there do not do well. And so I think if Anthony's looking to grow and scale, then and actually one of the questions that he did actually send through to me as well was, can you give me some advice, or can you connect me with somebody who can talk to me about best way to grow staff and keep them motivated and keep them on board so they don't leave? Do I have to incentivize them? Do I have to give them, profit share? Like, what's the scenario there?
Yeah,
I'm going to let you tackle that one, Al.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to say, like most things, their loss of guys is usually a result of not the cause. You got to get back to the cause. So when you have techs that come on board, if you have bought them by paying an extra $1, $5 an hour, whatever it is, to get them to leave wherever they are, the tendency is if they came to you for $1 or $5, the next person who offers them $1 or $5 an hour more is going to steal them away because they're just dollar hopping.
Yeah.
But in my case, where I built good, young, willing apprentices with no skills into people who are willing and skills, they become an unstoppable force. So they move from apprentice to junior tech, senior tech, to a field supervisor, which didn't mean they just rode around, but they worked in the field, first line of support. They could rise up through the company and become a big ticket salespeople. They could grow off and run a division, which is all of these things are being proved out at Zoom Drain franchise. So Zoom, before they became a franchise, lived everything that we're speaking to.
Yeah,
that is what turns the tide here. And I will say the other part of this, which I wanted to get back to the growth question because it was good, is one of the most difficult spots is you can make money at one truck, you can make money at 3-5 trucks, but it's more difficult. And that was the math that Ellen shared with me as well as Frank Blau, is all of it, what it takes in insurance and overhead and all your costs that don't go away. If you have more people out there turning wrenches and bringing in money for you, that's where the sweet spot of profit is. The most susceptible, difficult is when you're 3 to 5 trucks, you can't work out of your house anymore. You have to have an office. You have to be licensed. You have to have trucks, insurance. You follow all the costs that's starting to pile up on you. And if you don't have enough people out there selling billable hours, that's what's going to undermine you. So there's a reason to grow is what I'm saying. It actually gets better, again, if you have systems. And everybody asks, well, what's the magic number? No science to this. So listen to me. A rule of thumb is 7 trucks, 7 guys rolling every day is a good number for the following reason. Because that allows you to have 3 or 4 people that don't turn the wrenches. There is anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million, $2 million, depending on how you charge, the rest of it flowing in. If one guy leaves, only 14% of your sales went away versus if you're 3 trucks, 33% walked out the door. So that's why your goal to get to 7, plus the chance of burning out. It's a tough life.
Yeah.
If you're doing plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, it's a 24/7, 365 business. That's what you've told people in the marketplace. So that means people have to get up in the middle of the night. They worked all day, go out and work in the middle of the night, come back home and try to get to sleep before they go the next day. And if there's only 2 or 3 people doing that, or even 4 or 5, it burns you out. So that's why Ellen has heard me say this so many times. Life gets a lot better as you get to 7 and keep on breaking through. Elle, would you want to comment on that?
I would say the only caveat is unless you don't want to. So I shared the story, I think, when we talked before, Matt, that my husband said, you know what, I want to work all by myself. And I'm like, that'll never work. He's going to regret not having me. I'm like, I've got my arms folded, looking over my glasses, like, really, like, what a loser. And my husband, I don't know how he stayed married to me. I really don't. But what happened is he just decided he was going to have a very niche boutique business. He was going to do hydronic and solar heat. And his mission statement was to work with people he liked on projects that were interesting. And he totally rocked it because it's what he wanted. So what Al's saying, if this is resonating with you, that's because that's what you want. If it isn't, be willing to ask and answer those big questions. What do I really want? Why do I want it? Is it moving me towards my life goals? The 40 days and 40 nights experience of just taking enough time to discover for yourself which direction you want to go. And then you can set out a plan to make that happen. So it's not discounting what Al's saying about it getting easier. It is easier in general to run a bigger company than a small company. But what you want is senior to all of it.
And can I put a plug in here? Ellen's business weekend planner, that's off of her site. For those who don't have a plan, and we've been talking about that, I recommended that to a lot of people, and they love it. That way, Elle, you have that planner.
That would be
the financial planner.
Yeah, ellenrohr.com. No, it's like how to
No.
put a business plan together in a weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's skinny, has pictures, it's
excellent.
super easy. But here's another thing. Now, note that Hot Rod, my husband, he wasn't going to be able to sell a one-person company for millions of dollars.
Right.
So if that's what you want, if Anthony, you're looking for an exit strategy, the more this thing cash flows and creates wealth without you doing absolutely everything, the more valuable that company is, and the easier it is to sell it for something that resembles some worth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been preaching that for a long time. With all the companies we speak to, the two things that typically seem to be most valued in the scenario of a potential acquisition are the systems and processes that run the business, regardless of the owner, the directors, the managers, etc., and then the the database or the marketing, your marketing audience. So they're typically the two things that people look at when in the stage of an acquisition. So I suppose that's basically what we're talking about here. So growing the techs now, obviously leads is number one. Make sure the phone's ringing, and then once the phone's ringing, of course, we can justify putting people on. What's the best way, in your opinion and in your experience, guys, of onboarding these people and getting them? I mean, I know how you're talking about, I'd get apprentices and I'd train them up and all this sort of stuff. I suppose that can be good and bad in a way. Obviously, if you've got an apprentice, if you're really busy and you really need work to get done, then having to go through that whole process of, holding people's hand and teaching them how to do things, every day can be a bit of a grind. So, firstly, how do you draw the line between putting somebody on that can actually get out there and do the work? And then the other question on the back end of that is, how do you get those people that already know how to do the job? How do you get them to follow your way of doing the job?
Okay, well, that's a lead into what I'm doing these days, which is building your operating manuals, which is a program that I'm creating here. But that is, suppose Ellen's company had 10 terrific guys just walked in through the door, clean, neat, and they have plumbing training. What's the chances she can send them to 10 different homes and they would all do the toilet reset the same way? And the answer is 0 to none. Because until Ellen defines in writing how it is we do the toilet reset at the Ellen Rohr Plumbing Company, there's no shot. So that was really one of the first big building blocks. So when I would bring in new apprentices, the first thing they go through is the manual. If you show up as an ARAP person, there's a manual that goes through QuickBooks. If you show up and you're a tech or whatever, there's manuals to get people to pretty much do the same thing. Now, they're not 100%. They're not tech manuals in terms of you never did plumbing. Here's a manual. Go out and see what you can do today. That's not the way it works. But it's really that's really what makes the big difference in all the companies that I've worked with. Planning is first, but operations is right on its heels. So without written policies and procedures, it's not going to happen.
It's funny
because
it's growing an oak tree too. Like these things
right.
don't happen overnight.
Right.
It may take a year or 2 or 3, but that will be about 15 minutes from now. I mean, it will go fast if you put the work in now. If you focus the project, you're going to be living like you can't now if you're willing to do that.
But the reality as well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, when you're in this stage of creating systems and process, like it's not a destination, it's always a journey. Like there's always stuff to go to do. That you're always evolving the existing systems, you're always adding new processes. Like it's not like a be all end all. It's not you've done it once. It's like showering. You got to keep doing it.
That's good that you bring that up because really the
sorry, I'm going to drown you off from laughing.
No, I like that. But that, if people start to get involved in the process of change, then the process of change can be implemented consistently. I think this is part of the genius of what Al recommends is that we're going to have a master projects list. We're going to boil it down to our top 30 projects, our top 5. Those top 5 are going to get delegated and on the calendar. And they'll rotate as we get stuff done, as we get some procedures built or manuals implemented, then that comes off the list and something else comes on it. And as I think even more important than what to do is that how you do it becomes predictable and scalable so that change takes on a consistent look at your company. I think that's as as important. Here's another thought. As you were talking about, what are you willing to put up with? Are you willing to fire someone who won't do it your way? And the answer is yeah, you are. The willingness to let them all go may negate your having to do so. But if you won't compromise your integrity, like I have said to people before, if I let you go, just saying, I'm not going to have to worry about someone seeing that I'm serious for a year.
Yeah.
Right? They'll know I'm serious. And it's going to send a message to the rest of the crew. And we're building an empire. We're playing a big game. And I am not going to have conversations as to whether or not you're going to wear a belt. Like that is not going to happen. So if you want to stay here, you put up with a uniform you don't like. You put up with stuff that you hate at your job. You do. If the game is big enough, if you feel valued, if the I can get what I want out of this business by aligning with their mission. And if not, it doesn't make you worth less of a person. You move on. But I was just at Kenny Chapman's event, Al, out in Arizona, and Tab Hunter spoke. And he's got a lot of experience, heartbreaking as well as, the pinnacles of success. His overarching message was to move faster. If someone has to go, let them go.
Yes.
If you want to put these systems in place, get started today. Move faster was his overarching message. What do you think about that?
I think that's excellent. You're right on target with all of that, El. And it brought back immediately for me about my turning point was I was at a company of, again, 25 techs. And every day I felt like they could just walk in and quit or do anything. And I just went to my brothers and my dad. I was the youngest brother here, Matt. And I went to my two older brothers and my dad and said, I don't know about you, but I've had enough of being a hostage. We have great people with no systems and broken systems. Why don't we just have really good people and really good systems and see where we can go? And it was because of that. Those words left my lips before I thought about it. And they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And of course, the next thing was the manuals.
Yeah.
The manuals was absolutely it. And from there, we did all the other things. But Ellen's part about your willingness to let people go, believe it or not, in many cases, keeps them on board more. Now, it's not you don't get to walk around and be a dictator. That's not what Ellen's saying.
I thought you were going to say another word that sounded like that, but was shorter.
Stop it. Stop it. That's how we started this call.
Cut it out, you two.
Take control here, Matt. We're playing around in the yard.
So listen, anyway, I think like courteous of your guys' time, I think in summary, in answer to the question, when is the right time to grow? When is the right time to expand? When the work's there or during the planning phase? To what I've got out of this conversation with you guys is the planning phase will enable you to facilitate the first step, which is getting more leads. And then once you've got more leads, then it's the right time to grow. So there's no point in putting people on if you don't have the work for them. However, if you haven't planned to grow the business, then the business won't grow, and then you won't have anything in place to put people on in the first place. Am I kind of on track there?
I'll take a swing at it.
Yeah, and this thing is going to be a little bit messy. The clearer you are on your intention, what do you want, the easier it is to make aligned decisions and take action in that direction.
Yeah.
So my encouragement would be to get really, really, really clear on what it is that you want. And then you put this plan together that will help you get there, and you test your results. If it's working, great. If the phone's ringing, great. If it's not, you try something else. If your hiring isn't producing any guys, you, in addition to that, start training the guys you have better, build the manuals, and then add on some greenhorns so that you can get these guys cooking at your shop. So I guess there's, ultimately there is no guarantee, there's no promise. And my encouragement is that when you get clear on what you want, you're going to have one heck of a journey and really, write some songs and books about the adventure.
And let me ask you both.
I just don't think there's any wrong in any of this. It's all going to make something of you in the attempt.
So in this planning stage, when you sit down there and you figure out what is it that I want, where do I want to be in 5 years? And Al brought this up a little while, earlier when he was telling that story about the fellow who wanted to be out of the business in 5 years. he wanted to be out of the business in 5 years. And then as a result of implementing these systems and processes, he actually started enjoying it so much that his goal changed from wanting to be out of the business to wanting to stay in the business and focus more on it because he was loving it. So I suppose as the first step, just get a bit of clarity around what you want so you can start taking some steps towards achieving it, and then just steer your goal in the direction it's heading or in the direction that you want it to head as a result of what's happening in the business.
Excellent.
What do you think, Al? Why don't you wrap us up?
All right, I'll take it home, which is the better your systems are, as Ellen says, the easier and the further you can go and grow. And that's really it. But it starts with what Ellen said, which is you got to know what you want. What is it you really want? And for myself, I wanted less stress and more success. And once I let those words leave my lips, I kind of got the plan together. So work on the right things at the right time, the right way. If you want to take it another step, I absolutely recommend Ellen's business planner to make it formal, because until you put pen to paper, until you type it into something, put real goals and dates, nothing's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Nothing good.
Well, as long as we're plugging books, Al has a new book called The 7-Power Contractor. Can you make sure that Matt has your link to your site?
I've got it.
This book is we like skinny books. Let's make this simple. Keep it uncomplicated. This is not an overwhelming read, and it lays out the different areas of your business that need to be addressed if you want to grow your company. It's more calls and more texts, but that would involve better operating systems, leadership systems, sales and sales coaching, marketing. There's a lot of moving parts. Al makes it so elegant and simple to see the big picture. I love that book. So let me throw a plug in there for you too, Al.
And actually, for any of the listeners out there, you can get hold of, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes. You can get hold of the first chapter of that book. It'll be available in the show notes to this episode. You can get in there, you can read that, and then if you want to get the rest of it, there'll be links to where you can get that. And also, Ellen, now you have a landing page for the Site Shed visitors, which is ellenrohr.com/shed from memory.
Oh, yay. Okay. I think it's probably still on there.
Would it be possible to maybe put that business planner as a option in there as well for download?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me see what we've got on there.
I think it's just the financial planner currently.
I can ask John to add it to that site. I'm like a slow maybe it's because we're on. I live in the country. Sometimes it's 2 cans and a string with my internet. I can ask John to. Okay, yeah, you can get that.
There are actually. I've been to her place. There are cows that have antennas on them, so she can get a cell signal.
Perfect.
Okay, I've got that open like 6 times, all of which are playing a video of me right now.
Yeah.
All right.
Look,
take us home.
Thank John. Add that.
Thanks, guys, very much for your time today. That was awesome. I knew you two would kill it, getting you both together. And thank you very much for being pioneering this 3-way phone conversation. Sorry, Al, I had to say it with us.
That's too good.
Yeah.
It's just too good, Matt.
That was fun. I might go have a cigarette now.
So bad. So good. So good.
But look, guys, thank you very much. Thanks very much for your time. I much appreciate that. I know you guys are very busy, so thank you very much. And for the listeners out there, as mentioned, there'll be links to all the episodes we spoke about. There'll be links to Al's book. There'll be links to the downloads that Ellen was speaking about via the show notes. So head across to the siteshed.com/podcasts, and you'll be able to find the relevant episodes or the relevant episode to get all that information. Anthony, I hope that helps, my friend. Any other listeners out there, if you do have questions, just like Anthony did, by all means, email them across because, as you now know, we will get them answered and by some absolute experts. So, folks, thanks again for joining us on the line. Any closing comments from you guys?
Hey, thank you. How many episodes do you have now? This is so impressive.
This is going to be 113.
Good for you. I mean, thank you for making this resource available and inviting us to play. You're awesome.
Yeah, no, love having you guys
for being the evangelist that you are.
Yay.
All right, folks. Well, listen, that is a wrap for this episode. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from this show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.